Welcome to my review of Double Dragon Advance for the Game Boy Advance. And this game is basically based off of the original Double Dragon for the arcade, released in 1987. And that was a game that had a huge impact on me, as far as being super impressive. You know, when you were playing NES games and you saw Double Dragon in the arcades, it looked crazy. You know, the visuals were insane at the time. But this game is based off of that, but it's much improved over that version. I mean, there's you have a shitload of moves available, and you know, it pretty much has the full enemy variety from all the games in the series, pretty much, and just about every weapon. And the game is much longer. The original game, you know, is maybe 20 minutes long, but this version is about an hour long, so it's at least triple the length. And you know, the mobility with the running attacks and all the different moves. I mean, you can even bounce off of the walls. You can you know, do like wall jumps, bounce off the wall and come down with a strike. I never used that particular move. There's a lot of moves I never even ended up using in the game. But as you can see, I'm already using a variety of moves here. And they're all very useful. And there's a lot of moves in this game. I mean, I only knew about them because I looked in a GameFAQ and I saw the list of how many different moves there was, and there's a lot. You pretty much have every move in the series plus, you know, extra moves. Like you can come down and stomp on the guy when they're on the ground. I mean, you have these uppercuts, headbutts, elbows, just about everything. I mean, there's a lot of moves. The weapons, it keeps you switching weapons and moves frequently to stay alive. And this is only on normal. You can set more lives and continues, but they're limited. And just like most arcade beat-em-ups, wherever you die, you will respawn right where you died. But you will run out of those lives and continues very quickly if you don't know the game. Even normal is pretty challenging. Hard mode is quite tough. I did complete the game on hard. I never did finish it on expert, though. I'd like to go back to it and learn how to play it again. And then, you know, maybe run through expert mode. But I haven't done that, but it's definitely one I would want to revisit. This is actually, you know, my favorite beat-em-up of all time. So I put this at the top. Another game that's up there for me is Mother Russia Bleeds. That game had a lot of moves and just felt great to play. And that was a more modern game, but that's another game that's at the top for me. But, you know, I would say that this is my favorite beat-em-up overall because, you know, Double Dragon, for me, the original arcade Double Dragon, had a huge impact on me, even though gameplay-wise, it is mediocre in a lot of ways. But at the time, you know, it was definitely something special at that time because there was really nothing else like it that played like that. But now you can easily break it down and see that it has a lot of mediocre qualities. And I'm actually going to do a review on that and give it a fair review. You know, even though I like the game a lot, you know, when I give it a more objective review, it doesn't fare as well. I mean, the game had technical issues. This game really doesn't have any slowdown or anything like that. As with the original game, even on single player, you had a ton of slowdown. And if you tried to play two players, it was like a fucking mess at times. It ran super slow. And that was a big problem. This game really gets rid of all that. It gives you tons of moves. The weapons are great. Especially these nunchucks and these sticks. These are both great weapons. And you have a lot of enemies on screen as well. The game doesn't... it doesn't wait around for the enemies to attack you. You know, the enemies are aggressive. There's a lot of them. You really have to learn effective crowd control, and you got to keep it up through the entire game. You have parts where you're fighting on a moving truck, and you can knock guys off onto the ground below. So it makes good use of pits and things like that you can knock guys into, which is always fun to utilize. But it also works against you if you walk down too far or off the edge accidentally. You know, you will lose an entire life. So you know, you always got to be careful with that, and that can make these games challenging. Now there are some weaknesses with the game, but you know, overall I love the way the shit fucking plays. I mean, it plays so well. It's, you know, fast, smooth control, and the enemies are very aggressive. They keep you, you know, constantly engaged with the game, which to me is one of the signs of a great beat 'em up game. You know, it's not like you can just kind of keep guys on one side of the screen and just relax. You know what I mean? You have to really be on top of shit, which is it really utilizes your skills. It makes you want to keep playing, keep getting better. And that's one of the reasons I've been wanting to return to this game for years now and work on the expert mode, you know, and really just put some time into it. That would be a real cool mode to beat it. It'd be fucking hard, too. It's not easy. It would be a challenging mode to beat, but very cool. But you can see how aggressive this game gets. I mean, you can get into positions where you really get annihilated. So the game is going to make you use, a lot of your moves. You really don't need to use all of them. I'm sure there's a few that I didn't use. But it was helpful to know, a lot of the moves because they were useful for, specific situations, Like the elbow is good if somebody is behind you, you can hit them real fast, and you can strike behind you with an elbow. And there's attacks that are useful for certain scenarios. You have a lot of jumping attacks and being able to knock the guys up into the air with an uppercut. You can group guys together and do massive damage. There's really a lot to this game. The hits are awesome. It has the same kind of hits as the original game, but it's just so much better because the game is it's faster, it plays better. There's no slowdown really. So you got these running attacks to kind of keep guys off your ass. You can kind of knock them into one part of the screen and then, move around, get somewhere else, attack another guy. There's a lot going on. There's always lots of weapons available, a lot of options in combat. And most of the areas are filled with enemies, as you see. It's not like one or two guys like the old arcade game. It packs the screen with enemies most of the time. And this for me was an awesome fucking game because I played this on an emulation dedicated PC, and for me this was awesome because I didn't really know much about Game Boy Advance releases. I didn't really get to try them. I didn't really have any portable systems except the original Game Boy. So when I found out that there was a Double Dragon, I thought, okay, maybe it's a Double Dragon Advance. I thought maybe this is just a port of the arcade game. But when I played it, I was like, wow, they actually made this shit. They made like an ultimate version of the original Double Dragon. So if you like the art style, the music, and the way the original game played, and the whole theme of that game, then you'll probably love this game because it's like it's been extremely enhanced with tons of levels. Now the biggest weak spot of this game is the platforming. So you got platforms, and this is a game where the jumps really were designed to be really short and narrow. So that you could do jump kicks to attack enemies. It really wasn't designed for wide platforming type of jumps and shit. So it's pretty anal with that. And it is irritating when you jump off the ledges. A lot of times you can get knocked into the pit and lose an entire life. So, you can use it to your advantage. But it can be irritating since the controls are not really designed around platforming. You know what I mean? It's easy to run off the edge and just fall in the water, which is kind of irritating. I wouldn't say it's a huge flaw, but it was somewhat of a downside for me. In these games, whenever they tried to include platforming, I usually didn't like that shit. And, unfortunately, a lot of the games in this series did try to include some kind of platforming, like Double Dragon 2 for NES. The first one only had, like, one bridge you had to jump over. So, I mean, that was decent enough. But the first game also had a trap room at the end that felt random as fuck and would just strip your lives, which I'll definitely mention in that review. But yeah, that's probably my main issue with the game, is that there are some platforming parts. Luckily, there's not too much of that. That was the main level that had most of the platforming shit, and it is kind of irritating. I mean, I wasn't really a fan of that shit. Didn't really like it too much when the level did that. But I mean, aside from that, it's really a great game. There's a lot of environmental things that you can use to fuck the enemies up, as long as you avoid them. But yeah, you can see that the combat stays intense. It really doesn't let up. Enemies that you once fought as bosses become regular enemies, like a lot of games do. They just become normal enemies after a while. So you're going to see, multiple of those bosses mixed in with regular enemies. And here you have one of the final bosses, which is basically a bunch of clones. Now, if you bring the sticks into this battle, it makes it a lot easier. You can carry your weapons really far. They don't disappear after you clear a screen like in the original Double Dragon. So you can carry, as long as you can hold on to them. I believe if you drop the weapon a certain amount of times by getting hit by enemies, it will disappear. I think that's how it works. But I know that you can carry them for a long time. You can bring them through most of the stage if you can hold on to them. And weapons, even the weapons have running attacks. You don't have to just use the weapons normally. You have running attacks. Some weapons you can throw. I don't know if you can throw all the weapons, but there really is a variety, even with the weapon fighting. There's a little variety there, too. They pretty much went in and enhanced every aspect of the original game and just added a bunch of enemies, different types of enemies and other shit to the game. Now this is the final stage where you have your death traps like spears and shit like that can be annoying. I think there may be the infamous wall of blocks that can randomly hit you and damage you or kill you in the beginning of this stage, but I'm not sure. But some of the traps feel kind of cheap, like shit like this, where it's kind of hard to walk past those spears because it's like a really twitchy kind of. It's hard to predict. So I mean, parts like that can be kind of cheap feeling, and the platforming can be kind of shitty. But those are really the only real complaints that stand out to me about the game. I mean, other than that, it's, like I said, one of the best playing beat-em-ups that I've played control-wise, the way it feels to execute all the moves. The mobility is great. Like, everything is super responsive. So, yeah, this game definitely, is going to get a high rating for me. I mean, I really, really enjoyed this shit. I believe you can play 2 players in this game as well, but of course, with the original hardware, you needed to be able to link the 2 Game Boy Advances together with a cable, I believe, which would be kind of awkward. Grouping enemies together is always super effective. You can see this boss really got destroyed by grouping them together with the nunchucks. I think I took 1 hit and died, but aside from that, grouping them together was super effective. And that's a big part of the game, is that crowd control, trying to keep enemies grouped together and being able to attack them all at once is very effective. And it's satisfying to pull off. I don't know if you can play 2 players on the emulated versions. I don't know if there's a way to do that. But I'm sure it would be really good if you were able to do that. But yeah, overall, I'm going to give this game a 9.5 out of 10, as I think it's one of the best beat-em-ups ever made, and it's currently my favorite beat-em-up of all time. Thanks for watching.